What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, and today we are going to be talking about the latest release from Mastodon, Emperor of Sand. Emperor of Sand is an album that I have been looking forward to. I look forward to every Mastodon album that comes out, and although I didn't really enjoy the past two albums, I still come back and give each album a try. Now, opening up the album, we have two songs we've already heard pre-release, Sultans Curse, which I did not review, and Show Yourself, which I did review, and man, you guys absolutely loved that review. I still stand by Sultans Curse being the best song that they released before the album dropped. I really enjoyed that, and it really set the tone for my expectations with this album, and it did not disappoint. In terms of an album opener, it is incredibly serviceable, and also one of my favorite tracks off of the album. Having already reviewed Show Yourself, my opinion still stands. In fact, I would even go as far as to say I believe it is the weakest track off of the album. This is pure and simple, a single to try to attract people who are not familiar with the band, to get radio airplay. That's all it is. This is probably the most marketable song off of the album, and is clearly a product used to sell the album. Precious Stones is one of my favorite tracks off of the album. It is a complete 180 from Show Yourself, and I really enjoyed this track. Solo work, again, shines on here. Also, pre-release, I believe Bill Kelleher of Mastodon said that this album would have no shortage of riffs, and he was not wrong, especially in regards to Precious Stones. Then we have Steam Breather, which Steam Breather, I've been on Twitter, some of my other friends who have been listening to the album say that this is the best song off of the album. I'm going to have to disagree with them on there. Steam Breather is probably the most unique sounding off of the album. It doesn't get too weird, but at the same time, it's still kind of a Mastodon-like song. Great drumming on this track. My friend, I don't really know what he was talking about, but he says that the end of the build-up at the end of the song is fantastic. There was no build-up. It's just, this is a guitar riff to close out the song. And I mean, it's not saying that it's a bad song by any means. It's just, best song off of the album, I don't think so. I actually think that the best song off the album is what comes after Steam Breather, which is Roots Remain. Roots Remain is, wow. Alright, Mastodon can still play stuff in the style of Remission and Leviathan in 2017. This is something that I thought was never ever going to happen. A song like this on a modern Mastodon album made me very, very happy. And in case you can't tell from a reviewing perspective when I come into Mastodon stuff, the heavier the better. I'm a huge fan of their earlier work, and I understand the arguments that everybody have of bands evolve, bands experiment, things like that. But for me, for them to put out a track like Roots Remain in 2017 is an achievement in my eyes, considering the past two albums I was not very favorable of. Then we have Word to the Wise, again, another contender for one of my favorite tracks off of this album. Great, solid 4 minutes of just progressive awesomeness. And it's the same goes for Ancient Kingdom. Ancient Kingdom gets a little weird there for a while, and I think for some reason, even though it's below the 5-minute mark, I feel like it overstays its welcome on the album. Then again, that could just be, I don't really know how to describe it other than I feel like it was there for too long and could have been shortened up a bit, which I guess is the definition of overstaying its welcome. Clam Destiny is where Mastodon gets fucking weird. This song has a robot voice in the middle of it using a vocoder from what I believe is the same vocoder as the Black Hole Pinball Machine from the late 70s. And hearing that voice in the middle of the song made me go like, ah, yeah, fuck yeah, that's great. But at the same time, this song is really weird. and is strange even by Mastodon standards. I wouldn't say it's strange bad like Creature Lives, but it is definitely bizarre and something that I did not expect with the previous songs laid out for me in this album. We have Andromeda, which I did not review before release, but my opinion still stands with that. It is a solid track, kind of a filler. I do enjoy the main riff of Andromeda, that thing that you hear, the da-na-na-na-na, that stuff in the beginning. I think it's one of the best riffs off of the album. But again, that song in the context of the album seems to be filler to me. Scorpion Breath. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that this is the Scott Kelly track off of the album, and is also a contender for one of my favorite tracks off of this album. There was a period in time of me listening to this where I thought, this may be the best Mastodon song that they have written since Crack the Sky. And I'm starting to convince myself that that is true. I really enjoy this track, and it is definitely a track I'm going to keep in constant rotation on my phone. And then we close out the album with Jaguar God, which is a Joseph Merrick Pendulous Skin style song. I didn't really enjoy this track. I didn't feel like it added much to the album. The laugh at the very end of the song is weird. But all in all, I just don't really feel like it helped make the album better. I also don't think that it made the album worse. So it just kind of closes it out with, I wouldn't say a whimper or something bombastic, but just kind of like, this is it. Here you go. So all in all, one thing that I want to comment on, which I feel is a major improvement over The Hunter and Once More Around the Sun, the first thing that I noticed listening to this album is the mixing is so much better. Once More Around the Sun is probably one of the worst sounding albums I've heard in the past few years. It's all gained and distorted, and it is bad. There are points in time where I will have my headphones on at a normal volume, not maxed out, and Once More Around the Sun is clipping my ears. Like, it is a poorly mixed album, and I'm so glad that Emperor of Sand is not like this. Kudos to the production team of this album, because it sounds fantastic. Special comments towards the drumming. The drumming sounds great on this album. Not so much, the guitars kind of take a back seat in places, I've noticed on this album, in favor of the drumming. And also the percussion shakers and triangles and stuff like that in this album definitely get brought more to the forefront rather than like what they were in Crack the Sky as kind of an accent. There is a point, I believe it's in, which song was that in? Excuse me for looking at my list here real quick. Was it? I might have been in Clam Destiny, where I could clearly hear the shaker more than the guitars. It might have been that track. I don't know. There's a lot of percussion accents in this album, which is always a treat for me. So, when you break it down, this album, in comparison to previous albums, this is way better than The Hunter or Once More Around the Sun for sure. Is it their best work they've ever put out? Not in my opinion. Is it a great album? I would say yeah. I don't really think that it warrants some of the 9s or 10s that I've been seeing. I think that's a little too generous. If I had to give this album a grade out of 10, I would probably give it a 7... No. I was going to say 7 3/4, but that's just a dumb number. Probably rounded up to 8. I think this is an incredibly solid release. There are a couple of tracks that I'm going to keep in rotation on playlists. But at the same time, there are tracks like Andromeda, which is kind of filler, and then Steam Breather, which I feel is completely overhyped, but still serviceable. And then Show Yourself is just, I wouldn't go as far as to call it embarrassment, but it's definitely something that I'm like, this doesn't really belong here. It's so out of place. It would be like if you were to put March of the Fire Ants right after the Czar on Crack the Sky. It just does not fit at all with this album. It's incredibly bizarre. So, all in all, 8 out of 10 for me. Anybody in the comment section, I swear to God, man, like, the amount of comments that I got on Show Yourself was great. All the people hating my review of that song. But man, like, this is a solid album. Is it going to be the best release of 2017? Who knows? Is it the best Mastodon album in the past 10 years? No. But it's still a great album. Definitely recommend giving this a listen. Not sure if I want to pick it up on vinyl. Maybe if it drops down to like $20, I'll do that. But $35 to $40 is still too much. Too steep for my pockets, even for vinyl. So 8 out of 10 for me. Danny here from Metal Couch, signing out.